As I grew up, I was always intrigued by dance. I remember going to my cousin's performance of the Nutcracker and being in baby ballet classes. When I was 8, I started taking tap and jazz classes. I always felt out of place because my legs didn't move exactly like the other kids. I was always pretty clumsy and would stick out my tongue in order to focus on the routines. I also got injured a lot outside of dance classes, which made it difficult for me to continuously participate to the extent that I desired. When I was in middle school, I switched from dance and joined the cheerleading team, which was something I had always wanted. I continued getting injured doing various activities, and my back always hurt from being a stunt bass. However, after a year of being a cheerleader, which I realized in reflection wasn't dancing for myself, but performing an image of hyper-femininity and hyper-able-bodiedness, my body had had enough and forced me to stop cheerleading. I ended up getting bilateral hip surgeries, which didn't end up resolving my pain, and had to stop dancing and most physical activity for many years. In my sophomore and junior years of high school, I decided that I had had enough of not dancing, so I took some hip-hop, ballet technique, lyrical, and tap classes at a local studio despite my painful joints and bones. Taking these classes took a toll on my already disabled body, and after a year I was forced to stop again because I couldn't manage the distress. Once I got to college, I started trying to throw myself into student-led dance programs, thinking my body could handle it. After 1 week, I was not able to participate fully, partially due to increased pain, but largely in part because the peer teachers didn't know how to accommodate my need for adaptive choreography, like using my cane or a chair. Reflecting on my journey growing up as a dancer, I wonder how it could have been different if my teachers and classes were disability-informed and considered different ways of moving and engaging with the body. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, dance is the movement of the body in a rhythmic way, usually to music and within a given space, for the purpose of expressing an idea or emotion, releasing energy, or simply taking delight in the movement itself. So much of traditional Western Euro-American dance is predicated on having the perfect body, whether that be moving a certain way or having a certain body type. However, dance doesn't have to be straight legs and perfectly curved arms and tilted heads on pointed toes or running across a stage. It is just intentional movements. However, in many dance environments, explicit and implicit ableism and bias make it difficult or impossible for disabled dancers such as myself to participate. When dancers are not given an alternative way to engage in choreography or develop their own style that works for them, they are excluded from dance and told the space isn't for them. Although it is a different form of ableism, this creates a similar outcome to segregated dance, where dancers with one type of disability are put in one class and performance where they are allowed, still being told they don't deserve the same support and spotlight as able-bodied dancers. In this video essay, I am intentionally not going to highlight groups or practices that perpetuate bias against mobility aids and disabled dancers in order to focus on the possibilities of disability justice praxis within dance spaces. There are so many spaces that disabled dancers have been excluded or diminished by taking away their autonomy, so I am highlighting various ways disabled dancers make and take space instead. Disabled dancers, of course, have different practices, considering mixed abilities dance versus integrated dance. In the compilation of interviews with disabled dancers, Breadth of Bodies captures how various disabled dancers aim to make and take space in the dance communities. Some consider assimilation into an existing dance culture as the goal, mixed abilities dance, centering abilities over the person, while others strive to be in a style of dance that accepts and uplifts all movements and bodies. Integrated dance. Mixed abilities dance is more of an accommodating practice, while integrated dance works to be most accessible. The words chosen to describe disabled dance practices, disability arts, adaptive dance, integrated dance, mixed abilities dance, etc., are important, but some dancers interviewed in Breadth of Bodies questioned why disabled dance must be its own field, separate from mainstream dance. In Breadth of Bodies, dancers were asked if they would like to see disabled dance assimilated into the mainstream. Krishna Washburn, a visually impaired dancer, explained that the history of dance culture includes tyrannical choreographers, and the encouragement of dancers to ignore their physical and mental well-being in favor of perfecting their craft. So, she would actually like if non-disabled dance culture would assimilate to us, disability arts. Many disabled dancers interrogate and invite us to question what dance is and who it is for. For example, Eric Ferguson and Yulia Arakelian have a dance company called Wobbly Dance. They are a married couple who are both disabled. On their website, they say Wobbly is a multidisciplinary performance company in Portland, Oregon, based on improvisation, authenticity, and a touch of bateau. Wobbly is the unavoidable exploration of the body weathered by life. Wobbly is and is not dance, depending on the day and which of us you ask, but we move. In just this clip of their 2014 performance, various subversions of disability stereotypes and participation in contemporary dance can be observed. Moving their wheelchairs closer together and intertwining undercuts the norm of viewing disability as monstrosity, as intensified by the music, and instead shows the mundane humanity of using mobility aids and interconnectedness. Aside from the dance itself, the way the performance is set up alters the culture of dance. Instead of a stage and rows of seating, the performance is on an equal field with the audience, in a circle around them, all with equal access to the performance. They do not shy away from what it means to be expressive with your body as a disabled person. Eric and Yulia started Wobbly with the belief that putting a disabled body on stage is a radical act, and have noted that by forging a space in the existing largely non-disabled contemporary dance community, they have pushed forth the full integration of people with disabilities in society more than any political action ever will. We believe that by using our bodies in performance, we coax the audience members into a broader definition of art, beauty, and the lived human experience of people with and without disabilities. In contrast, but also in parallel, Antoine Hunter, a deaf black dancer, has forged a space to uplift deaf dancers. He has always used dance as a medium for communication between deaf and hearing people, but largely focuses on making dance accessible to deaf people, so deaf people are able to find community in dance. He incorporates deaf culture and India Harville has discussed her intertwined experiences of ableism in many dance spaces in tandem with intergenerational trauma of enslaved people being dispossessed of their bodies. She prioritizes access-centered movement as a framework based in disability justice that understands access needs as fluid and complex, requiring accountability to varying experiences to make spaces that work for more and more bodies, in contrast to mixed abilities dance, where some dancers in the space are disabled and others aren't, and inclusive dance, trying to include everyone. In a Disability Visibility podcast episode with Alice Wong, India said,
as I could get into a wheelchair, I got myself back to dance class because that was home for me. And I encountered a shocking level of ableism inside of the dance world, that when I wasn't out as disabled and when I was more able-bodied passing, I wasn't having to reckon with. And so I think those two things happening so close together was really pivotal in some of the shifts I made, and were sort of the beginnings of me recognizing that I needed dance spaces that made room for all different kinds of bodies to be in the experience. And from there, I found more and more access-centered movement experiences and classes and teachers, and really found a sense of myself and started to feel more reflected in the dancers around me.
Similarly to Alice Shepard, Harville works to reconstruct what dance means and how bodies are utilized and valued in expression. Alice Shepard not only focuses on dance itself as a space for disability, but also prioritizes the audience as integral to the dance space so disabled people have access to experience dance performances. She works with other disabled artists specifically to curate pieces. Her vision for disabled dancers is multifold: equitable access to technique and somatic dance practices, training in specific disability cultures and movement practices of their specific disability, and that university-level instructors and programs are disability-informed so disabled dancers are able to access higher education in dance.
See here in our process is that Wyatt is being made in a kind of cauldron of process where the dancers are contributing and I'm contributing and the composers are contributing, and it's not me saying you do this, do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. It's this kind of mishmash of spread, raw commitment. You know, we pass this kind of 19th century genius solo creator model.
In the air, they seesaw as they spin, back on the ground, intertwining their bodies.
This mini-documentary shows and tells the artistic process behind the creation of Wired for Alice Shepard, Laurel Lawson, and Jerome Herman. They demonstrate how access in dance is not just being accommodated in traditional top-down choreographic dance forms such as ballet, but that disability can be embraced through modern and postmodern styles with emphasis on the dancer's artistry and creative expression. This is a crucial reframing of disability justice in dance as not conforming to participation in inaccessible dance environments, but creating our own spaces for expression. Wobbly Dance, Antoine Hunter's Urban Jazz Dance Company, Alice Shepard's Kinetic Light, and India Harville's Embraced Body Project all embody different practices of disability justice. While all view movement as radical and crucial and draw from disability culture, they have different approaches to disability justice in the dance community as a whole, some working to make space for disabled people to dance with non-disabled dancers, while others prioritize centering disabled dancers in their own right. At UCLA, the hopefully ongoing Dancing Disability Inclusion Lab works to make dance a space to learn from each other and brings together dancers with various disabilities and practices. Alice Shepard, India Harville, and many other dancers have come together to demonstrate how having space to dance that is accessible to all who wish to participate is vital to uplift. In 2019, for example, disabled dancers gathered in Kaufman Hall to utilize different dance practices for expression. Many dancers, for the first time, were dancing with other disabled dancers, questioning the non-disabled dance norms. They discussed how they can disrupt systems of power and control by dancing as their authentic selves. The Dancing Disability Labs at UCLA have brought disabled dancers together to learn from each other different ways of movement and communication outside of ableist norms. To break all of this down, I'll list each of Sins Invalid's disability justice principles and how dance practices can and have embodied them. First, intersectionality. In order for dance spaces to truly be practicing disability justice, they cannot ignore how multiple marginalizations impact individuals' abilities to participate in spaces. Access is not just about making spaces available for varying disabilities, but making low or no barriers to access in regards to cost, language, gender expansiveness, attire, etc. Intersectionality means accounting for unique and communal lived experiences that are reproduced in spaces such as racial injustices that lead to poverty and incarceration, and calling out or preventing racial biases within intentional dance spaces. Second is leadership of those most impacted. All of the practices I have highlighted in this video essay are by disabled people, many of whom have been hurt by the traditional dance cultures. It is important that disabled people lead the charge for access within dance because otherwise people are just assuming what disabled people want and need, often missing the marks for accessibility and functionality and what people can actually achieve. Third is anti-capitalist politic. By disrupting the norms of capitalist production through art, prioritizing production and profit over the people creating the art, disabled dance that doesn't aim to assimilate to traditional dance culture is inherently embodying an anti-capitalist politic. Fourth, commitment to cross-movement organizing. As Antoine Hunter explained, his identity as a deaf dancer cannot be separated from his identity as an African American dancer. Similarly to intersectionality, it is important that dance practices working to embody disability justice do not ignore the fights for racial justice, gender justice, economic justice, etc., because they all impact how disabled dancers are able to show up in the spaces cultivated. In order to be vibrant disability justice-oriented dance spaces, fights for all aspects of justice must be uplifted and central to the goals of the dance spaces. Fifth is recognizing wholeness. In order to recognize wholeness, it is vital that disabled dancers are able to choose how they show up and participate. Some practices, led by non-disabled people, encourage or force young dancers to abandon their mobility aids and rely on others to move them. This removes dancers' autonomy and doesn't grant them access to their full potential in dance. People also need to be able to express their needs and not be forced beyond their limits because individuals know their bodies better than anyone else, something that non-disabled dance culture often forgets. Sixth is sustainability. I think sustainability is something that disabled dancers prioritize because embracing disability means embracing that your body doesn't always work the way you want it to. So instead of an unsustainable, further disabling practice of pushing too hard, as in traditional dance culture, disabled dancers take time to understand their body's needs and limits in the context of dance and movement. This sustains the ability to participate in dance for longer and in more meaningful ways. The seventh principle is commitment to cross-disability solidarity. With disability, everyone's experience will be different in some way, even if they are categorized under the same disability. Similarly, people categorized under different disabilities may have remarkably similar experiences. This makes it even more important to make dance spaces accessible to people with any and all disabilities. Within Kinetic Light, Alice makes one of her priorities audience access, fighting for the performance spaces to change their practices and layouts to make more wheelchair users able to utilize the space. She ensures audience members can utilize different ways to engage with the performance as well, such as protactile performance, like feeling the performance, layered audio descriptions, and visual descriptions. Eighth is interdependence. A lot of dancers highlighted in this essay perform pieces around themes of interdependence and relationships between disabled dancers. We rely on communication with each other to make dance spaces what we need and want, and this is a form of interdependence. The aspects of pieces that highlight interdependence bring out the nature of access intimacy, when people just get what you are going through and you are able to see each other deeply. Ninth is collective access. As India said, dance is a space to practice our values. For example, India Harville makes accessible dance and performance spaces by considering who is and isn't there, considering people's experiences in movement spaces, including physical therapy and the medical system, figuring out common things we can do as a group, considering dynamic disabilities and how ability changes day by day, minute by minute, so creating choreography that is vastly accessible to daily needs and a wide variety of bodies. Also considering audience accessibility, like tactile experiences. Lastly is collective liberation. By uplifting disabled dancers and stories, making and taking space, we fight for collective liberation. Within dance, we must all be able to thrive in order for a dance to be successful. And this is a perfect representation of how disability justice works for collective liberation. We rely on each other to excel. When anyone is struggling to participate, we must disrupt the norm of moving on and figure out how to best support each other. We must prioritize the uplift of everyone to uplift anyone. Because dance is such an expressive medium, it has the potential to tell the stories of a wide variety of lived experiences, which disrupt the expectation of everyone just being productivity machines. When disabled dancers make and take space for each other, we change the norms of dance culture and make dance more accessible. As a microcosm for potential disability justice in broader society, dance is a perfect space for disability justice praxis. The principles of disability justice must be engaged in dance spaces, as Alice Shepard and India Harville, for example, have demonstrated in their practices. We can imagine the most radically accessible dance spaces and work to carry them out. We can imagine the most accessible performance spaces possible and make broader spaces change to be accessible for our performances and thus future programs. We can practice working with each other rather than over each other in order to create things together. By challenging traditional dance culture to instead be by and for disabled people, we can engage in disability justice praxis in order to push for disability justice throughout broader society.